This is Marcus Whitney's Audio Universe.
Like, you gotta do the work. You gotta show up and just do the work.
What's good? Happy Friday. Hope there's actually not a ton of people on watching live today. Hope y'all are enjoying this beautiful day, and hope a bunch of you have got some time off right now. But I'm here. So if you're here, I'm here. And we're going to wrap up this week strong. I got a really, really dear friend of mine who his work is like, it's impossible to detach the work that he does from my life. So let me tell you what I mean. So I love cigars, and like this guy like brands the cigars that I like to smoke. And the first iteration of the Nashville Soccer Club brand, this guy blessed us with. This guy's a dear friend of mine, and he probably was just as pissed off as I was about Spurs shitting the bed this week. Without further ado, my man, Stephen Jones. What's up, Stephen?
What's going on, man? Thank you so much for having me, and congratulations on the book, man. I can't wait till mine shows up in the mail. It's a big accomplishment, man. I'm super stoked for you. That's killer.
Thanks, brother. Thanks, man. I appreciate, all your support. You've been there the entire way as I've been talking about doing it, thinking about doing it, crying because I wasn't doing it right. So, man, I appreciate you, man. So, dude, let's just spend a little bit of time framing up your backstory, and then I want to start from the day we had cigars on the porch, because I feel like, for me, I know you were already ruminating about this, but for me, that was when I noticed a huge change in you. But let's just talk about your entire backstory, because it's fascinating.
Yeah. Originally born in Kentucky, about 2 hours away from Nashville, so still fairly close to home. Ended up kind of falling into a graphic arts class when I was in high school. I got kicked out of a Catholic school for being a little shit, and I ended up at the school that had an arts program, like tech based. And I'd always drawn and stuff as a kid, but seemed like a viable option. I think, especially as artists, like, back in my day, it was parents were saying, well, you could be an architect. That was the only thing that they thought an artist could be, or a creative person could be and get paid. And it's like, man, we're putting these bad paths in people's heads. But graphic arts was kind of the thing I latched onto. And, I knew that was the route I wanted to go. I was kind of looking at schools when I graduated high school, and I wasn't 100% sure what to do. And then 9/11 happened, and, I'd come from a history of, a lot of service to our country from my uncles, my great uncles, my grandfather. So we've got a history of that, and I felt compelled to serve. So, your boy is following that same route, man. Yep. And I'm so proud of the man he's becoming. It's pretty
it's
awesome.
Amazing. It's amazing.
But after that, I pretty much learned design on the fly in the Navy. So I had this platform to try and learn all these new things without the scrutinizing eye of the public, in terms of, people on social media. It was low level at that point. It wasn't as broad as it is now, and so easy to put your work out there. So it kind of gave me this cushion to like fail and learn along the way. And it was super helpful. And then when I got out, I ended up coming to Nashville to study design at Watkins. So I spent a few years there and got my degree. And I spent some time working in the agency life, and I kind of fell into the cigar work, and that really kind of propelled me forward, and has kind of set me on a path to work in packaging for products, and cigars and wine and spirits, craft beer, that kind of stuff. I think if you work hard, treating yourself's all right. And I think a healthy balance is important. So, that's kind of driven my creative life. And I'm just, I had I had a real bad, serious case of burnout and anxiety and depression, and felt like I couldn't get myself out of the hole. And I think a big part of that was because I was following a path that I thought was set out for me, but my path was actually different than that. And the things that really, the things I was drawn to, that I got fulfillment from, that's a path I need to make. It's not a path that I follow,
Yeah.
I think once I realized that, it's like, oh, okay, that's probably why I felt so shitty, because I knew there were other things I wanted to do. And it took me a little while to figure that out. But, when we had our conversation on your porch, it was more about, I think I need to change my life. I think martial arts would be a good first step. I didn't know what was going to come after that, but I did feel like martial arts, because I guess you've been training Hapkido, and I know you were spending
for
time
probably 3-4 years at that point.
Yeah,
I don't know if I got my black belt yet, but I was like on my way.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a discipline to that you carry that over to other parts of your life, and when you start, you don't realize that.
Right.
So
right.
I think it's just a matter of taking that first step, and it was cool to have you to bounce that off of, having that experience already. Nobody's going to make that decision for you. You have to make it for yourself. So you just, you gave good feedback about what it had done for you. And I'm glad I jumped into it, because starting that Muay Thai practice for me it was the catalyst for everything else. It's not the only thing that's, it's kind of, it's the catalyst, but it's the very first step to like my own awakening, my own self-discovery, my own acceptance of myself, my own instilling habits and practices that are healthy for my body, my mind, my creativity. So I think sometimes people associate the Muay Thai with the thing. It's like, it's most definitely a crucial part, but everything that came after that, it's a part in a bigger evolution of my story. You know what I mean?
So I want to go back to the discussion about you being on a path that you thought you had to be on, but that wasn't actually your path. What was going on around you that was putting whatever that path was in your head? Like what was influencing you to make you feel like you needed to do things a certain way?
Yeah, I think, the design creative industries as a whole, it's a lot of trend-based stuff. I think there's a lack of mentorship in our creative fields. But in the design industry itself, it's driven so much by, are you fitting with this thing that's popular right now? So I think there's that. I think there's also, when designers talk to each other, and when you see other creatives online, you don't see what it takes to get somewhere. You see a lot of people, and you put them on a pedestal, and you say, hey, this is the thing I need to achieve. And it's like, just because somebody else has found success in design does not mean that that's the path for you. You may, the thing that's, great about ourselves as individuals is that our experiences that we've had in our life, our skills, all these things make up like the thing that can really craft your uniqueness and your offering. I kept trying to like figure out, okay, how do I fit within this shape? It's like, no, man, you just have to like bow out and like break the shape at the guts of it and just be okay with yourself. And I think the biggest part of that, or the biggest thing that helped me realize that, was when I learned to love myself, because I felt like once I loved myself, there were no more barriers. And when you find a purpose, there's, as an entrepreneur and anybody that's worked in a job that is demanding, if you don't have some sort of purpose behind it, how are you going to get through those tough parts? Right. Like that is the hardest thing to think about when shit hits the fan and it goes south and you are at your wit's end and you're trying to figure out if you're going to be able to keep going. If it's not driven by purpose, how the hell are you going to find the guile to like dig through that? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So all that stuff really helped me realize that instead of trying to fit inside this mold of what designers think designers should be, what they think work should look like, what the pinnacle looks like, we make that for ourselves, and that offering is the thing that makes us stand out. So once I realized that, it was, oh man, now I feel the weight because I feel like the handcuffs are off.
Right.
And now I'm like, okay, it's going down for real now. And I feel like I have an opportunity to really, help mentor some people, help some other folks establish some good practices that they can carry into tons of different parts of their life. And I feel like that freedom, it's irreplaceable, man.
So I want to talk about the intersection of loving yourself and understanding that you have to create your own lane and martial arts. And I was not planning on talking about this, but just the way that you sort of brought that up. We train in different arts, but martial arts. I don't want to say martial arts and martial arts, but martial arts and martial arts, right? Like the martial arts and martial arts, right? So
absolutely.
So one of the most important things that I learned as I was progressing in Hapkido and then had to then relearn again as I started, BJJ, was, you see your master do things a certain way, and then you try to do it, but like you can't necessarily do it that way. And it's not because he or she is a master and you're not, it's because you're not them. You know what I mean? And you start realizing over time, you have to learn these moves in the way that works for your body. You know what I mean? For your strengths. And then you have to like start learning how to lean into that. Like start celebrating your strengths and like forgetting about like the differences that you have from other people in order to be really, really great. So like I'm just wondering, like for you, if that was something that was part of helping to bring you to yourself. Yeah,
I think that just comes with that's a self-love element as well. It's like, self-discovery for me is it's a step to getting to self-love. I think self-discipline is a step to getting to self-love. I think service to others is the other step for me to get to self-love. When I think about, yes, I don't do everything like everyone else. I have my own limitations, physical limitations. I have mental limitations too, in terms of, experiences in the past and things that shape the way I view the world and interact with people. And those things are the unique elements that make you special and what you offer. But, the other thing too is that sometimes it's a repetition that we have to build before we can get to that place as well. Like it may be a dexterity thing as to why you can't perform a move the same way.
Yes.
So there's different reasons for that. And I think there's, but I definitely look at, I'm not going to be able to kick somebody right in the head every time. If they're 6 foot something, you have to accept that, and you sharpen the skills that you're good at.
Right. Right.
So I think there was, I've done some research on Bruce Lee and listened to some different things, but he talks about this concept of, he had a foot that was shorter than the other. So it affected his stance. And one of his students was talking about, oh, I'm old and I can't do this. And he's like, well, it doesn't mean that you can't succeed. It just means that you have to do it a different way. So I think it just comes down to accepting yourself as you are. And that is most definitely, to me, a step towards self-love. Self-love to me is like, it's the handcuffs off. Once you love yourself, the freedom is there. And I think there are some steps that you have to take to get to that point. and accepting yourself as you are, changing the things you can change, but accepting yourself as you are and learn to love yourself anyway, and embrace the uniqueness of your strengths and your weaknesses.
Yes, sir. So what's been super impressive about watching you over really the last 2 years is just how you made the decision and you engaged. You clearly have a knack for discipline, because as soon as you started stepping into martial arts, you started rapidly changing your life. You know what I mean? Like, you started running and you were like eating better. And then like, you were like, oh my God, I'm like thinking better. And you lost all this weight and you were just naturally happier and choosing where you were going to spend your time differently. And you've had a really rapid transformation. And I guess over the last 6 months, at least as I've been watching the content you've been creating and putting out online, you've been connecting the dots between this self-love manifested, the action of self-love manifested in how you actually treat your body, right?
Yes.
And your ability to channel creativity, right? Talk about that. Talk about that magical connection between the physical and sort of the creative being.
Yeah, I think your recommendation early on in this journey in terms of Dr. Kelly McGonigal's book, The Joy of Movement, like totally did it for me, man. From a science standpoint, from a acknowledging, the differences between group exercise and choreographed movement with others versus movement on your own. So there's a lot of things I felt like I learned from that, but I'm still pursuing. I'm seeking, continually trying to educate myself on this stuff, because
tell me. I don't need to know the information. I need to know your experience.
Yeah.
Right? Tell me your experience. Like,
yeah.
How has it actually manifested for you? You've done the work, and you're feeling the benefits of it. And it's clear. I can see it in what you're creating. So like, talk about that.
Yeah, man. I think as artists, as creative people, there's a certain level of vulnerability we have to be comfortable with to put ourselves out there. I think it's getting harder and harder for people to do that, because social media and the web is kind of a nasty place sometimes.
Cancel culture and all these
all
things.
That.
Yeah.
So it's keeping people from, putting themselves out there a little bit.
Yeah.
So there's confidence issues across the board, apprehension, and just releasing a drawing that's maybe not 100% complete, right? So the confidence that I built up in my own self-discipline that I fostered through martial arts, it let me realize that my creative process and the work and the output that I put into the world, it's going to be continually improved upon, and that I'm never going to reach a pinnacle in either, because the thing that kind of screwed me the first go around of running my own business was that I thought I had reached the pinnacle, because society told me that running your own design studio is the definition of success for a creative person.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, well, where the hell do I go after that? So I think that made me crash. So
yeah,
now that I look at things and I'm comfortable with just working on improvement and looking at longer term goals, that confidence from the martial arts and that mindset I took and I brought into my creative work, and it gave me confidence to make things, knowing that it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to live up to my standards, because I always want to get better. But that progress was super important, and that a daily, or at least a very scheduled, intentional practice in both, they're going to inform each other. So the connection for me was built on confidence and routine, and that gave me the nerve to approach something that I was a little scared of, and allowed me to be more vulnerable with myself and with the people that I'm working with. And only good things have come from that. I'm not recalling any negative side effects from self-discipline, building confidence through physical movement, and applying that confidence and mindset to my creative work. That's the thing that really, really did it for me.
Yeah. And do you feel like, there is, cause I certainly do. I feel this way from an entrepreneur perspective, although I do feel like with the Instagram culture of everything being like visibly beautiful and all that kind of stuff, that like this is changing a little bit, maybe in not so great of a way. But I do think that there was this culture around entrepreneurship that was like all around hustle and like working 16 hours a day, which would never leave time for you to sleep well, eat well, exercise well, right? All of those kinds of things. And then it was also like network, go to parties, sort of all that stuff. Like I said, I do feel like that's changed a little bit here recently, but when I was earning my stripes as an entrepreneur, that was not the deal. No one gave a damn how much you could bench press or if you meditated. You know what I mean? They just wanted to know, like, did you hustle 18 hours today? You know? And
who's going harder than who?
Right. And I definitely felt like, again, back to that, like when you're first entering something, and you don't yet have that experience, you don't have that wisdom, and you didn't have that mentorship. No one's like telling you, yeah, that's not actually the thing, but society is sending all these really off signals to you. Yeah. Do you feel like in the creative world, like there is as an outsider, I'll tell you, I do feel like this, that there is a real misalignment between take care of yourself and be an incredible creative. Like it does not feel like those two worlds are being encouraged to come together.
No, not at all. And I've worked in the agency setting. I've worked in the small studio setting before. It's let's take young people, use them up, toss them out. That's the way I felt. And that's sad. And some people aren't going to like the fact that I said it. I don't really give a shit. There's no priority on the balance and health of people. And what I've realized is that if you do take that time and pay attention and take care of yourself and prioritize that, the output is ridiculous. Like the confidence, the quality of work, the just like overall demeanor, like just being around people, So I think about it, like if you invest a little bit in making sure your team has time to take care of themselves, or at least emphasizes that that's important, and sets some boundaries that will contribute to that. Because the thing that is the hardest about agency life is that there's not a lot of boundaries in terms of work times, when they expect you to respond, working nights, working weekends super late. It's like, you guys need to work smarter, not longer, Right. And smarter starts with healthy, happy people who are ready to like get in there and make some work. It's like, you can't drag out good work by just working people to death. It doesn't, the outcome is not good for anybody. So I think, culturally as an industry, we need to change big time. It did give me hope. I work at a job now that is not run by someone who was brought up in the creative industry, someone who pivoted into that role. And that's when I knew that things could be different. And that's when I knew that you can, provide a good environment and support for people to live their lives in a healthy way. And it comes back around. It's so fruitful, and it gave me hope that, maybe we can change it, but it definitely needs some work. Yeah. Needs a lot of work.
So to that end, you have recently created a podcast under your personal creative studio inspirational brand, Shipsco.
Still working it out.
Yeah, I know. We all are. But I love the name. I love the name Capacity. I have a section in my book where I reference this term effort capacity. And capacity is obviously one of those key things you need to keep an eye on. So I love the word. It's a great name for a podcast. Great job. But just quickly talk a little bit about Capacity, the podcast.
Yeah. So, through my fitness journey, I'm seeing all these changes happen in a positive way. And, I'm thinking, how can I help some folks? And are there any other people like me? And when I realized that my uniqueness in my offering was the fitness and the creative part. Those were the two things that made me special. And I said, man, there's got to be some other people like that around. And it honestly started with this Muay Thai fighter who's number 1 ranked in America that I just interviewed on the podcast. He went to school for graphic design. So he has a graphic design degree. He manages his own brands. Go check the interview out on Capacity. It's on Spotify and all the other main podcast platforms. But, once I realized he had people around him that were doing similar things. So there's a guy that does comic illustrations and practices Muay Thai. There's, I made friends with this Portuguese runner, Na Pinheiro. She's a marathoner and she paints and we're good friends. Like I started seeking people out because I wanted to surround myself with like-minded people so that we could, not only support each other, but challenge each other and share stuff with each other. And I felt really lucky to be able to find some of those other people. And I think once I had that lens and was looking at creativity and fitness, I realized there were a lot of great stories that needed to be, I needed to find a way to share them with the world because selfishly for me, it was a great opportunity to learn from these people who are, operating at a high level in a couple different skill sets. So that was important. And that kind of drove Capacity as well. My friend Simone Wilder, who's a fantastic illustrator, designer, she lost over 120 pounds, man. And in the last year, it's like totally transformed her life. And we talked about, kind of her resilience. She did a 365-day project. So for any creative person to do something consecutively like that, it really shows resilience. And I feel like those are the stories that people can latch onto because most of the time it just takes a small step. And I think people see the end result and they're a little nervous about, trying to live up to something like that. But ultimately each person started somehow. And most of the time it's a small step. And I think, getting some of these stories about how people get going and what drives them, from a mindset perspective, how they're structuring their life. Those are things that you can train a person to do. So it's not a talent or skill-based thing. So there's a step-by-step system and method that I'm trying to formalize a little more because I see the power in it. And I got a message yesterday that just like totally made me, it's like, I lost it because somebody that's a dear friend of mine took the first step to like trying to get control of her life and her fitness and try to feel good about making creative work again. And that was the thing that made me realize Capacity was important to support this. I'm doing the mentorship stuff and, kind of this creative career consultant work that I'm formalizing as well. But Capacity is a great way to have a longer discussion about how these things have affected my life, how they've affected other athlete and artists' lives, and how they're using that to like be their most badass version of themselves. And it gets me stoked, man. It's really, it really made me feel like I'm pursuing the right thing. And that's the first time I ever felt like that in my life. Dude,
that's amazing. So I'm super proud of you, dude. Just watching you continue to be courageous and try new things and, risk failure, which happens rarely, as I think you're continuing to find, like you just keep putting yourself out there and people keep resonating with it. And, I think that this intersection of creativity and physical well-being is massive. It's a huge opportunity. And, that community has to be built, and I think that's the thing a lot of people don't think about when they think about the value that comes from doing a podcast. It is that you end up creating community. You know what I mean? Like, we talk a lot, but it's been a while since we've had like a good 30-minute conversation like about this, and for me to like really hear like what's going on with you, right? And so, I just know you're getting so much value out of it. I've listened to 2 episodes so far. I think it's great. It reinforces things that I believe and reminds me of things that I need to like maybe get back on the horse with. So it's awesome, man. Yeah, right. Exactly. That's all this is, right? It's just like reminding you of like what you need to know, man. So anyway, dude, like I told you, half hour would go fast, and here we are at the end. But before we do check out anything, just sort of final things, it could be like, I'm going to promote you, but like just in terms of any final messages you have for everybody watching and listening.
No, I think the first step is always the hardest one. And I think if you set some attainable goals, it will get you in motion for progress. And once you get on that horse, it just keeps fueling what you do. So stick it out, like take that first step and don't set the bar so high that you can't achieve it. Set it where it's work and set it where it's achievable, and then start building on things after that. And I feel like it's a good way to start implementing some healthier practices that'll affect every aspect of your life. So.
Good people. The incredible Stephen Jones. You're going to want to follow this guy. I know it. So here's how you can do it. Ships Co. Studio, basically everywhere online, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. He's on LinkedIn and shipscostudio.com. Go follow, go support this guy. He is really putting it out there, putting his heart out there, sharing his story, being vulnerable. It's inspiring, and it's also a way for you to like connect in with your own vulnerabilities and find that spark you might need today to go take that walk, do those jumping jacks, whatever that thing is you like to do, that movement that's going to then have these incredible downstream benefits for the rest of your life. This is a guy who just by tuning in will help you get there. So thank you, Stephen, for being here. This is the final day of book launch week for me, Create and Orchestrate. We have had an unbelievable week. We hit #1 on Amazon in 6 categories. Most importantly, entrepreneurship. So I just want to thank everybody out there for being incredibly supportive. This was just such a humbling week for me to see all the support and the love. And I hope that if you've bought it, that you are enjoying it and finding it valuable. And if you haven't, it is still 99 cents through Monday. So through the entire holiday weekend here in the U.S., it will be 99 cents. So go grab a copy. The podcast, Marcus Whitney's Audio Universe, everywhere that you get podcasts, go subscribe if you haven't already. You can find me online everywhere at Marcus Whitney, and marcuswhitney.com is where you can subscribe for the newsletter and all that other good stuff. That is it. I'm so happy to wrap this week up. I have not slept well, so I'm going to be taking this weekend off for real. But love y'all. Let's build a new normal. Have a great weekend. Peace.
Thank you for tuning in to Marcus Whitney's Audio Universe.